All right, folks. Welcome back to the Crisis Report. It has been quite the whirlwind over the last 22 hours. Woke up 7 a.m. in Reims, or as they say it, Reims, France. And here we are, back in the great state of Maryland, or at least as long as we're here for. We're working on that. But I'm not going to be long-winded with this sucker. I'm just going to go and I'm going to take you through what has happened up until this point, and then I'm going to switch over to PrepperNow and go from there. So basically, to give you the last 22 hours in a summary, got onto a plane, or got to the airport, flew out of Paris, and started to load things up, got everything so I could play on the phone or on the plane, for 10-hour flight. I got everything where I just like preloaded, and I went through all of my different information things, and I created the crisis report as I was sitting there flying over the Atlantic Ocean. So get home, and my wife and daughter are immediately flying out for her to be in a major sports ball tournament. So we went from one airport to the next, drop them off, get in, take 5 seconds to lock the kids in and load the things up and take a look. And all of a sudden, at about 8:38 a.m. or p.m., all of the fit started to hit the shan. Everything started to break and everything. So at that point, I was basically done with the crisis report, and I updated everything. And you have to understand where we are right now. We have got to go through what has been before. So this is all the lead up stuff, and this is a majorly big report. So I'm going to speed through it. I want to get started right now, and I'm going to go over to the PrepperNow, and I'm going to go and take you through everything that's going on right now. And to give you a little bit of a heads up, basically, Israel has been striking the nuclear sites, but they've been also going after people, and they've hit some major people, and it has been confirmed, not just through our mainstream media, but also through major channels and mouthpieces in Iran of these people confirmed to be hit. So at this point, friends, we don't know where we're at. As William Penn says, World War III may have just started. Now, if you are over on on PrepperNow, 3 days ago, I think my last video, when I had a moment, because I didn't have time, I'm traveling with my family, so I got to pay attention. I said the next war, and I called what is going on right now, 72 hours before. The people that are on my subscriber team, like Pat Bobber and Dovely and others, they all get heads up through my different channels or in the background, one of which being a member here on YouTube. So please consider joining us there as a member on here on YouTube, okay? All right, I'm going to get started now. We'll say 3 minutes and 30 seconds on what has happened so far up until this point where Israel basically attacked Iran, okay? Now, we've been here before, but this one I think is a little different, so here we go. All right, so the update first. This is when everything started. 8:35 p.m., AP cites an Israeli official who says the targets are Iran nuclear and military sites. Meanwhile, Iran has suspended all flights in an international airport. Israel has closed all airspace. Israel official confirms attack targeted Iran nuclear sites. Iran has suspended flights at Tehran International Airport, according to Tasnim. And this is everything that led up to that moment. And it is important because it's going to give you the backstory. Giant Russian tricolor unfurled in one of Tel Aviv's parks on the occasion of Russia Day. U.S. Navy reportedly placed its base in Bahrain on high alert. Dependents are being authorized for evacuation. This is yesterday, tailing into today, when all of a sudden a lot of these big weird alerts started to happen. People started to go, something major is about to happen, to which I reported to my members. Associated Press claims U.S. State Department authorizing departure of non-essential personnel family members from Bahrain, Kuwait. Iranian defense minister threatened to target U.S. bases in the region if tensions escalate on nuclear negotiations with Washington that collapsed. Now they're gone. That's out. Boeing E-38 Sentry early warning and control aircraft was over southern Turkey. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth authorized family members of U.S. military in the Middle East CENTCOM zone to leave per U.S. defense officials. Safety and security of our service members and their families remains our highest priority, and U.S. Central Command is monitoring this developing tension in the Middle East, official tells Al Arabiya English. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth authorized family members of U.S. Doubler. Yaskov Bardugo, Israeli journalist close to Prime Minister Netanyahu, said that the state of Israel was on the verge of launching an attack on Iran just days away. Well, we were just hours away at this time. Sources told Al Hadath that U.S. military increased its troop deployment in Erbil, capital of Kurdistan. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says our enemies are trying to incite internal strife to attack us with our unity, which will thwart their efforts. Third night of rioting hits Ulster. This is in the United Kingdom. Emergency Rest Center, local leisure center for migrants whose houses in Ballymena, this is North Ireland, so UK, destroyed, set on fire. Earlier clashes in Manchester were linked to a funeral and reportedly not political in nature, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the United Kingdom as well, as people are unhappy with the migrants. I will be talking about the migrant situation in France when I get over to PrepperNow. Israeli officials told Axios that the IDF has been extremely on high alert in the recent days, escalation with Iran. Diplomatic source told the Washington Post, we are monitoring the situation with concern, believe it is more dangerous than ever. Yes, it is. Tom Cotton, Arkansas, the Iranian regime is moving towards a nuclear bomb. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth confirmed that Iran's terrorist regime was working towards a nuclear weapon for the sake of our national security of our allies and millions of civilians in the region. That cannot be allowed to happen. U.S. Air Force KC-135 Stratotanker took off from Saudi Arabia, switched transporters off immediately. All this was the setup. Everybody knew something was about to go down, and here we are. U.S. State Department orders embassies in Eastern Europe, Caucasus, within striking distance of Iran to evacuate non-essential personnel and family members. Now we know why. Hamas murdered U.S.-backed 5 GHF local civilian aid workers. Gazan Arabs working on GHF. Multiple injured, fear of hostages reported. Urgent statement from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is the GHF. 10 p.m. Gaza time, bus carrying more than 24 members of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation team, local Palestinian working side by side with the U.S. To deliver critical aid. They were brutally attacked by Hamas. It goes on from there. I'm not going to read all that, but long post, but a lot going on, as you can see. Israel sent a message to the Lebanese state through diplomatic channels that any military action by Hezbollah in response to possible attacks against the Iranian regime will be met with the destruction of the party and the Lebanon. At this point, you should be getting the feel that everything going on right now is not just an Israel versus Hamas thing or even Israel versus Iran thing anymore. This is more than likely going to go regional. Israel sent a message to the Lebanese state diplomat channels. Yep, got that one. CBS News reports U.S. officials have been told Israel is fully ready to launch an operation into Iran, obviously proven true. Part of the reason the U.S. advised some Americans to leave. CBS also said the U.S. anticipates Iran could retaliate on certain U.S. CENTCOM sites. Ayatollah Khamenei says during his speech, Trump is lying and his statements are not worth a response. Death to America, death to England, death to Israel, and death to the infidels. Military convoy of the SDF forces, accompanied by international coalition forces, entered the city of Al-Shachel in the Deir Azor countryside, coinciding with the flight of drones at a low altitude. Convoy headed to Al-Hasia neighborhood. Military convoy of the SDF forces, accompanied by the international coalition, Al-Shachel. That's a doubler. Sorry. I was on a plane. I had a lot going on. Journalists asked why evacuation orders were sent across CENTCOM. He said, why are U.S. dependents and military personnel being evacuated from the Middle East? Trump said, you'll have to see. Thank you. And we are seeing that. Gantz says Netanyahu is convincing the Haradim, that's the really devout Orthodox Jewish, that we are in a dangerous security situation and cannot go to elections instead of convincing them to enlist in the army. United State Department raises the warning for traveling to Iraq to level 4. June 11th, state ordered the departure of non-emergency U.S. personnel. Level 4, do not travel. Southern Baptists endorsed efforts to overturn same-sex marriage to get with more of the culture wars going on in America. Southern Baptists voted overwhelming on Tuesday to call for the overturning of the Supreme Court ruling legalizing same-sex marriage, with strategists citing a successful effort that overturned the right to legal abortions as a possible blueprint. You're going to see that get going. Another long one. By the way, all of this is on the crisis report. It is https://PrepperNow.substack.com. And once you get there, you can go here and you'll have links like the New York Times and others where we get all of our information and link it as much as we can. So you can go and follow on your own due diligence, because I think you are smart enough to handle it. Tamara Klein, thank you, brother, so much for that. I really believe, and also thanks for talking to me in the background and give me some insight on things and everything. I really appreciate you. He says, I'm at the point I don't believe anything being told to us. I think the government is in on bending us over. Stack and get more citizenships in smaller countries and stay under the radar. It is funny you say that. My wife and I, which, we've traveled now, she's been to 20 countries. I've been to 12. We're talking about that, and our next big trip is more than likely going to be to Argentina, Patagonia, to be honest. Rio Grande, it's down on the eastern coast in the precipice of Patagonia. Seattle Antifa rioters have taken over streets around federal building, rolling up a dumpster into intersection and lit it on fire. Rioters call for intifada in U.S. soil. There's been a lot of that. These Antifa protests are now spreading. A lot of them have got this kind of Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestine, Free Palestine movement kind of feel that's taking over. You'll see them ready for the black bloc action to go on, and then all of a sudden they're screaming about freeing Palestine. It's very surreal and interesting. And obviously coordinated, to be honest. Seattle anti-ICE groups and Antifa waving Mexican flags blocked 1st and 2nd Avenues, federal building. Antifa militants are now using furniture and dumpsters to create a street blockade in downtown Seattle. LA, anti-ICE protesters threw a can at an LA police officer and was immediately tackled to the ground by a bystander. People are supposedly seeing Craigslist ads saying multiple thousands of dollars if you're a tough SOB and want to get into the thick of it and go against the LAPD and others. You'll get paid well. So one has to answer or ask, why and where are these monies coming from? Who is it? And if there are people that can be traced, they need to be arrested for, sedition, to be honest. Mob of Mexican nationalists and leftist militants have surrounded the Doubletree Hotel in Whittier, Los Angeles, over rumors National Guardsmen, DHS, are staying there. Seattle Antifa amassed outside federal buildings, starting fires, trying to, as part of the open borders riots. Israel is considering taking military action against Iran. We know that's true. Prime Minister Netanyahu took aim at Turkey, said the Ottoman Empire will not be revived anytime soon. Iranian official told Reuters that a friendly country in the region warned us of a possible Israeli attack. That country supposedly is Oman. Antifa has announced plans to carry out an attack on the ICE facility in San Francisco today. Left-wing group is organizing a massive demonstration in Tampa, Florida, tomorrow aimed at disrupting ICE raids. Left-wing rioters have waved a severed Donald Trump head through the crowd or in chaos in L.A. ABC News reporter describes the chaos as just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. Yeah, that's all it is. Craigslist ad, service, LA, cash incentives, bonuses, strong men, especially those military backgrounds, are being asked to help. Another Chinese scientist linked to the Wuhan has been charged with smuggling illegal biological materials into the United States. New York State Senate has approved a doctor-assisted suicide bill and sent it to the governor for approval. Senior LA official revealed that his daughters were arrested during the ongoing riots for allegedly assaulting a police officer with a deadly weapon. Wow, that's a little bit beyond the grounding. ICE has arrested over 100 illegal immigrants in Nebraska who are working illegally using fake documents, stolen identities belonging to U.S. citizens. Bill Gates made a secret visit to the White House, urging Secretary of State Marco Rubio to reverse the DOJ-initiated cuts to USAID. Flyers handed to the press in downtown LA warned them to put their cameras away or risk having them smashed. Peaceful. President Trump announces that a federal appeals court has just ruled the U.S. has the authority to impose tariffs on other countries. Trump ally Mike Davis says it's time to start arresting the politicians and billionaires who are aiding and abetting the riots across the U.S. I would agree. Republican Representative Mark Green has announced his resignation from Congress. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard claims the Los Angeles riots are allegedly being coordinated and funded. Empty shelves reported widely across the U.S. blamed on the cyber attack in UNFI, a large food distributor, not just Whole Foods. If they are trying to really mix things up leading up to Saturday's birthday military march versus growing riots, food shortages would certainly be a highly incendiary fuel to throw that on the fire. What the truck covered it, and that was gotten from the fabulous Ice Age Farmer. So good to have you back, brother. My Lord, it's been too long. Tensions escalate again in the Middle East. U.S. evacuates embassies. Israel prepares for attack. Iran promises to respond. Iranian military and government officials discuss how to respond to the Israeli attack, according to the New York Times. According to the publication, Iran has developed a response plan that involves an immediate counterattack on the territory of the Jewish state, hundreds of ballistic missiles. CBS reported that U.S. officials officially received information that Israel was ready to launch a military operation, and they informed Israel was fully prepared to launch it against the Republic. The U.S. also expects Iran to retaliate against certain U.S. targets in the region. Wednesday, the Islamic Republic's Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh said the event of war with the United States would attack all American military bases in the Middle East. And that's what we're waiting on. Commenting on the situation, Donald Trump explained that Americans are advised to leave the region because it can be a dangerous place. Trump also reiterated that the United States will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. However, U.S. President Donald Trump, special envoy in the Middle East, Wyckoff, still plans to meet. Well, that's obviously off. Excuse me. Trump said he intends to send letters to trading partners over the next 1 to 2 weeks outlining unilateral tariff rates ahead of July 9th deadline to reimpose higher tariffs on dozens of economies. We're going to be sending letters to countries about a week and a half to 2 weeks explaining them what the deal is, Trump said. Iran has drawn up a plan to retaliate with hundreds of ballistic missiles in the event of an attack by Israel, according to the New York Times. Mark Rutte, NATO chief, says Russia builds in 3 months what NATO does in a year: 1,500 tanks, 3,000 vehicles, and 200 Iskanders. Iran stopped complying with its nuclear obligations to UN, according to Sky News. This is when we knew that things were getting serious, like really serious. UN Nuclear Watchdog's Board of Governors has found that Iran is not complying with its nuclear obligations for the first time in 20 years. Trump issued an executive order to accelerate domestic drone production, including flying cars, EMS, taxis, cargo, defense, logistics. 48% of London's social housing has been occupied by people born overseas, costing Britain around 3.6 billion sterling a year in discounted rent. People are really starting to get mad over there. So, yeah, not good. Ukraine's former foreign minister has warned that British mothers must accept their sons have to die defending Europe, otherwise there is no NATO. I was driving through D.C. today, and there was a thing on a bus stop that said, like, go die for NATO or something like that. It was pretty crazy to see this in, like, and this is a nice suburb of D.C., right, not too far away from Dulles. Annual Bilderberg meeting just commenced at the Grand Hotel, Stockholm, Sweden. Awesome. I bet they're having a good time. Air India flight AI-171, Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner from Ahmedabad to London crashed. One guy lived. I'm going to get through it, but there were 52 British nationals on there, 242 in all. One guy lived. It's absolutely miraculous how he did. U.S. Air Force has released the first image of its new nuclear cruise missile, AGM-181A long-range standoff, or LRSO, which is designed to replace the aging AGM-86B air-launched cruise missile. After years of development, the missile is the top priority for the Air Force and Global Strike Command. Goes on from there. The satellite image shows the deployment of 4 B-52 bombers, 6 F-15s, 6 KC-135 refueling, and 1 C-5M heavy transport. I believe that's the Galaxy. One of the United States Army, Diego Garcia. Big tip-off. Fire broke out on a ship in the port of Bushehr, Iran, resulting in 5 people killed. KF-16D fighter jet, South Korean Air Force crashed in Alaska. Fortunately, both crew members ejected. Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency, this is a big one, IAEA, adopted a resolution against Iran with 19 votes in favor, 11 abstentions. Resolution was proposed by the United States and 3 European countries and criticized Iran's nuclear program. Countries voting in favor included the United States, UK, France, Germany, Spain, Argentina. Goes on from there. You get the point. Chaos erupted as ICE protests prompted a state of emergency in Spokane, Washington. Several protesters have been taken into custody. Failure to disperse. Charged at SPD have deployed tear gas into the crowd. It is spreading. For the first time in months, Israeli authorities allowed humanitarian aid trucks to directly enter the northern Gaza Strip, as in the Zakim crossing. Iranian Foreign Ministry, Grossi, is directly responsible for undermining the credibility of the International Atomic Energy Agency, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry. They supposedly have some papers showing that Grossi is working in lockstep with the Israelis. Seen them? You do your due diligence. You go down that rabbit hole should you want to. All's fair in love and war, folks. Friedrich Merz, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, said Wednesday they agreed on the need to urgently curb immigration and strengthen EU rules on asylum. A little too late, folks. About 500 National Guard troops have been trained to accompany agents on immigration raids and have been temporarily detained protesters in Los Angeles, commander says. Iran threatened Wednesday to target U.S. military bases in the region if conflict breaks out. Trump said he was less confident about reaching a deal. RFK has named 8 new committee replacements for the jibbity jab, one of which is Dr. Robert Malone. Apple Store downtown L.A. closed until further notice. Initial ADS-B data from Air India Flight 171 showed aircraft had reached a maximum barometric altitude of 625 feet. Airport altitude is about 200 feet, and then it started to descend within a vertical speed of 475 feet per minute. It's a pretty dramatic plane crash that has been caught. I, of course, was being the evil dad that I am and showing my daughters right before we got onto the plane. My wife's like, "You're terrible." I'm like, "Hey, it's all possible. At least we'll go down together, you know." We made it. Nearly all Abrams tanks U.S. gave Ukraine have been destroyed or disabled. U.S. Embassy compound in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad is preparing an ordered evacuation due to heightened tensions in the region, according to reports U.S. and Iraqi officials. Reuters. All reports over the past 2 months indicate that Trump is preventing Israel from striking Iran. Iranians have felt that the gun that was pointed at their heads is now gone, and since the threat of a strike is merely a threat, they can afford to stall the talks. Trump now understands this and decided to reintroduce the threat of strike into the conversation with actual steps. Well, they struck. Reports in the U.S. that pizzerias around the Pentagon are experiencing unusual surge in orders, never a good sign. Israel is bluffing on behalf of the United States. They want an agreement, and they want to fold our demands into the negotiations, but we won't, according to Iran. Arab report, internet completely cut off in the entire Gaza Strip. 53 hostages are still in Gaza. IDF recovered the remains of Yair Yaakov, 59, and Aviv Atzili, 49, who were murdered on October 7th, kibbutz Nir Oz. 53 remain in Hamas. Frank, you know I got a sick sense of humor, brother. Actually, my oldest daughter thought it was funny. I did one of my preferred, not preferred, how I put it. One of my brother subs. You're not a sub to your friend. This was chastising me for saying I was showing the the airplane going down to my daughter's before he got on to the next one. Oh man, 53 remain in Hamas's grip, 22 presumed alive, 31 dead. That was worth it right there. U.S. Embassy in Israel has issued a warning to its employees: do not travel outside of Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, or Beersheba. Further notice. Nuclear Iran poses a threat to mainland U.S. and Gulf states, according to Wyckoff. More interesting updates from any sources deployed in the Middle East. This is Aquila before all the fit hit the shan. Military bases in Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, conducting exercises simulating coming under attack. U.S. military equipment, including air defense systems, have been pouring into the Middle East from Europe and the Pacific theaters. Additional deployment will continue over the next few days, which will now be overt deployment. Additionally, U.S. embassies in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Africa have been conducting contingency exercises. U.S. could additionally divert naval assets towards the Middle East to counter an Iranian attack. U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth confirmed that approximately 20,000 laser-guided 70mm APKWS rockets, originally scheduled for delivery to Ukraine, have been sent to U.S. bases in the Middle East. I wonder why. Aquila says, I'm telling you, they've already manufactured a crude nuclear bomb. They'll very likely test it just to show their position. I don't think they're going to be allowed to. Israel claims Oman has warned Iran that Israel intends to strike Iran. Israeli strikes now seem more imminent than ever before. IAEA, just in simple terms, said Iran is enriching uranium, not for civil use, but military use. Iran announced a replacement of its older centrifuges as the Fordow facility with advanced IR-6 machines. Additional measures to be announced. That is an upgrade to mean they're not giving up. Flight Radar 24, Air India Flight A171 was scheduled to fly from Ahmedabad International to Gatwick. Signal from the aircraft lost at 8:08 UTC, 625 feet, less than a minute after takeoff. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled his planned vacation to the north. According to Ahmedabad's police commissioner, there are no survivors amongst the 242. There will be one. 200 bodies recovered. Hospitals in central Israel have been instructed to prepare for an emergency. And this is the guy, Viswashkumar Ramesh, British national, sole survivor of the Air India Flight 171. He recalled after 30 seconds of takeoff, a loud noise followed and the plane crashed. It was a sudden event. When I woke up, I found bodies all around me. Ugh. Iran's Fars news agency has published the first set of documents on Israel obtained by the Iranian intelligence ministry. The documents reportedly show that Rafael Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, has fully cooperated and coordinated with Israel and carried out its orders and directives. Spokesman of Iran's Parliament, National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, the option of withdrawing from the Non-Proliferation Treaty is now on the table. That's the big seriousness right there. Ryanair, EasyJet, British Airways extended the suspension of flights to Israel. IRGC Commander-in-Chief General Hossein Salami, Iran is ready for any war at any level. Well, bro, I hope you're ready to meet Allah, because evidently Israel just sent you there. President Trump says he will loosen the very aggressive immigration policy due to its negative impact on farmers and hotel and leisure businesses. China is going to remove tariffs on nearly all goods from Africa. Both criticized U.S. trade moves. Argentina is going to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in 2026. United States announced that it will relocate the Africa Command headquarters to Morocco. Russia relocates strategic bombers to the Far East. Russia has reportedly deployed the Tu-160 and Tu-22M3 bombers to the Far East following Operation Pautina, or Spiderweb. OSINT analyst Avi Vector reports all of these are now in the moved from the Balaya Air Base. That's 52 strategic bombers were based in Balaya before the whole thing. 11 Tu-22M3s were transferred to Olenia, Ukrainka Air Base, Amur Oblast. Israeli Foreign Minister to Macron says if you are enthusiastic about a Palestinian state, establish it in the vast hands of France. There are some really nice places in the Grand East, as they call it, right around Reims, Adems, as they say, where you could definitely just set up a wonderful, wonderful area for them. North Paris already looks like it. In May, Russia captured more Ukrainian territory than in almost any month since late 2022. JP Morgan says an attack on Iran could spike oil prices 120 to 120 a barrel and leave CPI at 5%. Guess what reason why I was not here on time, folks? Because as soon as I got home and I chucked my kids into bed, holy Lord, I had about 5 gallons of gas. I poured that sucker into the cars. I was using it for lawn mowing and stuff. I took my 2 big 15-gallon suckers and completely filled them up. Strongly suggest, if you can, to fill your vehicles up right now. German Defense Minister Pistorius, there will be no Taurus missiles in Ukraine. We are not considering it. Governor Ron DeSantis says if you're driving down the street and the mob suddenly surrounds your car, threatening your safety, you might have a right to flee. If you end up hitting one of these people, that's their fault for impinging you. Reginald Denny is who I think of on that one. 1:30 a.m. Thursday, at least 8 NYPD vehicles went up in flames in a suspected arson at a police parking, DeKalb and Central Avenues. That is Brooklyn, if I'm remembering my New York pretty well, because I used to live not too far away from there. Nearly 1,800 protests organized by No Kings Movement are expected across the country this weekend. Should be nice. Abbott of Texas has deployed the National Guard, ICE resources. Trump administration says riots are stopping them from carrying out their mass deportation efforts. Scott Bessent lays out the benefits of the One Big Beautiful Bill for Americans. He says raises take-home pay between $7,800 $13,300 for average family of 4. Increases wages between $6,000 and $11,600 for the average worker. Cements no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and tax relief for seniors. Incentivizes unprecedented investment in U.S. manufacturing. And there it is. Friends, that's your crisis report. I had to bust through it. Let me go over and get loaded up on my next thing. Let me find it. There it is. Yep, we're good. Okay. I'm going to take this over to PrepperNow, and we're going to go full on. I got to find a nice feed to look at to see what's going on with that. But please hit that like button, do the subscribe thing. If you're new here, darken up the bell, get the notifications, join us like Bad Bobber and others as a member. It is a great way to get the information. I was posting all about this attack happening 48 hours before. So I made a video on PrepperNow that only got like 1,000 views, typical, that said this is coming very quickly. And here we are. I don't wear a Swami hat. I just go through and parse the information and look at it and look at it and look at it and find it, and I lay it all out. And from looking at that entire tapestry of what is going on, we get an idea of where things are going, and it is not good. I didn't choose my, trip overseas the first week in June for the heck of it, folks. As I've been saying for months now, I feel like it's now or never. And I got to tell you, as I'm back and we're broke, but whatever, my kids saw the beauties of Europe, probably for the last time. I knew something is coming. Something is coming. It's big. William Pence, you said it yourself. I think we're on the WW3 precipice. We all know it's been raging silently in the background, but I think it's about to rear its real, true, and ugly head. So why don't you join me on over to the PrepperNow, and we can talk about it over there. And we are going to get into the news. God bless you all, and we will see you on the next one. Go on over to PrepperNow.